Tonight, Scott Pelley in Ukraine with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
The Ukrainian president faces a critical moment in his alliance with the United States. In an interview this past Friday, Volodymyr Zelenskyy invited President Trump here to Ukraine to see how Russia's unprovoked invasion 3 years ago continues to threaten the peace of the Western world. Zelenskyy is navigating a sharp turnabout in Washington. The United States had been leading NATO in arming Ukraine and isolating Russia, but since taking office, President Trump has praised the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and criticized Zelenskyy. This past Friday, a Trump official met Putin in Russia about the same time we sat down with Zelenskyy in his hometown. It had been a week since Russia killed 9 children on a playground. You seem to have a real hatred of Vladimir Putin.
Putin?
100% hatred, not even 99.9%, Zelenskyy told us. Though this doesn't mean we shouldn't work to end the war as soon as possible and transition to diplomacy. But how else can you see a person who came here and murdered our people, murdered children? We're inside a school bomb shelter right now, the bomb shelter of a school. The bomb shelter classrooms beneath the city of Kryvyi Rih were silent. School 41 was mourning its students killed on April 4th. Swing sets, pierced by shrapnel, stood where Zelenskyy laid his memorial to the 9 children and 10 others cut down by a Russian missile. He asked us to look at their faces and told us that while the great powers endlessly debate war and peace, these children will never speak again. Mr. President, what does an atrocity like this tell you about the progress of the war?
It means that we can't trust Russia. We can't trust negotiations with Russia.
Russia strikes Ukrainian cities daily. 1,700 attacks on schools, 600 children dead, 780 hospitals and clinics attacked, 13,000 civilians killed, and up to 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers dead, all for Vladimir Putin's vanity war to expand Russia to NATO's doorstep.
Наші люди платили найбільшу ціну.
Our people have paid the highest price possible, Zelenskyy told us. There is no higher price. We have given all our money, all we have in terms of finances, but most important, we gave the lives of our people. Those were the points Zelenskyy struggled to make in February as President Trump opened negotiations with Russia and initially excluded Ukraine. Then, Trump rewrote history, saying falsely that Ukraine had started the war and calling the democratically elected Zelenskyy
a dictator without elections. Zelenskyy better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction.
When President Trump called you a dictator and said that Ukraine started this war, what did you think?
Я вважаю, що, на жаль, русські наративи
I believe, sadly, Russian narratives are prevailing in the U.S. How is it possible to witness our losses and our suffering, to understand what the Russians are doing, and to still believe that they are not the aggressors, that they did not start this war? This speaks to the enormous influence of Russia's information policy on America, on U.S. politics and U.S. politicians.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now.
And Zelenskyy told us he heard Russia's narrative from Trump officials in that disastrous Oval Office meeting in February.
You're gambling with World War III.
Zelenskyy grew tense as President Trump said both sides were suffering, Ukraine's people, and the Russian invasion force.
Зміна тональності, зміна реальності.
It's a shift in tone, a shift in reality, really, yes, a shift in reality. And I don't want to engage in the altered reality that is being presented to me. First and foremost, we did not launch an attack to start the war. It seems to me that the vice president is somehow justifying Putin's actions. I tried to explain. You can't look for something in the middle. There is an aggressor and there is a victim.
Руський агресор, ми жертва.
The Russians are the aggressor and we are the victim. Vice President Vance suggested that Putin could be trusted, and it was Zelensky who was creating a false narrative.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President.
Would you invite President Trump to Ukraine?
With pleasure. Please.
This, Zelensky apparently wanted President Trump to hear in English.
We want you to come and I think to come and to see. You think you understand what's going on here. Okay, we respect your position. You understand. But please, before any kind of decisions, any kind of formats of negotiations, come to see people, civilians, warriors, hospitals, churches, children, destroyed or dead. Come, look, and then let's move with a plan how to finish the war. You will understand with whom you have a deal. You will understand what Putin did, and we will not prepare anything. It will not be theater with preparing actors in the streets and etc. We don't do this. We don't need it. You can go exactly where you want in any city which been under attacks. What I said to them, just to come and to understand.
With his invitation on its way, he switched to Ukrainian. Does the United States have your back?
Навіть в моїй цій паузі є проблема. Тому що я дуже
Even
хочу
in this pause of mine, there's a problem, because I want to answer truthfully and quickly that the United States is our strategic, strong partner.
А ця пауза – це
But the pause is
я
doubt.
не сумніваюся, що
I don't
люди
doubt that the
Америки знають.
people of America are with us, but in a long war, many details are forgotten.
Але в Європі всі бояться, що Сполучені Штати можуть
In Europe,
віддалятися
everyone
від
fears that the
Європи.
United States may drift away from Europe. Can you do without the United States?
Я думаю, що
I think without the United States, we will suffer great losses, human and territorial. So I wouldn't like to consider that.
я б не хотів би
But
розглядати
this is our destiny, our land, our life.
Але це наша
One way or another,
доля,
we
наша земля,
will end this
наше
war.
життя.
The U.S. has donated about $175 billion in aid. Roughly $100 billion of that was military, most of which was spent in the U.S. on manufacturing American weapons. What would you say that the American people have gotten for that money?
Завжди вважали,
We have always believed that this is our shared struggle, that Ukraine is defending our shared values, that we are defending Europe as a whole.
але я можу тільки подякувати.
I can only thank the people of the United States of America for their support, their strong support. But the people dying right now, with all due respect to the U.S. and Europe, the ones dying right now are Ukrainians. This is why I say that by giving us weapons, other countries are protecting their own people. But in the Trump administration, U.S. aid has all but stopped. Last month, the White House announced partial ceasefires, but they haven't happened. And now Trump says he is losing patience with Putin. Putin can't be trusted. I told that to President Trump many times. So when you ask why the ceasefire isn't working, this is why. Putin never wanted an end to the war. Putin never wanted us to be independent. Putin wants to destroy us completely, our sovereignty and our people. Putin's troops occupy about 20% of Ukraine. The 600-mile front is largely frozen. World War I trench warfare plus drones. It's estimated that as many as 200,000 Russian troops have been killed. What does a just peace look like to you? To not lose our sovereignty or our independence. We, no matter what, will take back what is ours, because we never lost it. The Russians took it from us, the temporarily occupied territories. We will not recognize as Russia those territories that the Russians temporarily occupy. We will bring them back. When or how, I cannot say. But what we can't bring back are the human lives. There's only one thing that can be done: justice. We cannot let go the issue of justice. Those who killed must pay for the murders. Zelensky told us any true ceasefire must include a guarantee of Ukrainian security. He imagines an international peacekeeping force and would like the U.S. to be part of it. This could mean a force protecting airspace and providing air defense, which may consist of airplanes rather than boots on the ground.
I will end the war in Ukraine immediately. I will get it done while I'm president-elect.
During his presidential campaign, Trump boasted he would end the war before Inauguration Day. Instead, today, Palm Sunday, Russian missiles struck the Ukrainian city of Sumy. At least 32 civilians are dead, including another 2 children. In your view, what is at stake in this moment? Security. The security of the world is at stake. If we do not stand firm, he will advance further. It is not just idle speculation. The threat is real. Putin's ultimate goal is to revive the Russian Empire and reclaim territories currently under NATO protection. And the United States, being part of NATO, means it will be involved in any potential conflict. Considering all of this, I believe it could escalate into a world war, a risk to the world. Yes, for the world. There won't be a safe place, not a safe place for anyone.
Tonight, Scott Pelley reports from Ukraine, where he sat down with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in the capital, Kyiv.
We met President Zelenskyy as he prepared to depart Kyiv for the United States. This week, he will speak at the UN and meet President Biden. It is a critical time. U.S. officials tell us that over nearly 600 days, almost 500,000 troops have been killed or wounded, both sides altogether. Part of the cost, so far, of Vladimir Putin's unprovoked invasion. We spoke to Zelenskyy on Thursday. He told us that his people are dying every day to prevent World War III. We're defending the values of the whole world, Zelenskyy said. And these are Ukrainian people who are paying the highest price. We are truly fighting for our freedom. We are dying. We're not fiction, we're not a book. We're fighting for real, with a nuclear state that threatens to destroy the world. The United States has contributed about $70 billion to your war effort, and I wonder if you expect that level of support to continue.
Я вважаю, що Сполучені Штати Америки
The United States of America is supporting Ukraine financially, and I'm grateful for this. I just think they're not supporting only Ukraine alone. If Ukraine falls, Putin will surely go further. What will the United States of America do when Putin reaches the Baltic states, when he reaches the Polish border? He will. This is a lot of money. We have a lot of gratitude. What else must Ukraine do for everyone to measure our huge gratitude? We are dying in this war.
Подивіться, якщо Україна впаде, що
Look, if Ukraine falls, what will happen in 10 years? Just think about it. If the Russians reach Poland, what's next? A third world war? What will it take? Another 70 billion?
Я не знаю. У мене немає.
I don't have an answer. The whole world has to decide whether we want to stop Putin or whether we want to start the beginning of a world war.
Ми не можемо змінити
We can't change Putin. Russian society has lost the respect of the world. They elected him and re-elected him and raised a second Hitler. They did this. We cannot go back in time, but we can stop it here. Ukraine stopped the Russian advance, but at a terrible cost. Ruined cities, millions of refugees, untold thousands of dead, all for Vladimir Putin's nation-building vanity. Today, the war is fought on a 700-mile front. The red area is the 20% of Ukraine still occupied by Russia. This is where Western-donated tanks were supposed to punch through, cutting the Russian force in half. But trenches, minefields, and artillery stopped the armored advance. Now, it's an artillery duel, with each side firing about 40,000 shells a day. Ukrainian infantry is advancing bloody yards at a time. It's World War I with drones. How would you describe the fighting at the front?
Складна ситуація. Буду абсолютно відвертим з вами.
It's a difficult question. I'll be completely honest with you. We have the initiative. This is a plus.
Зупинили наступ російського.
We stopped the Russian offensive and we moved into a counteroffensive. But despite that, it's not very fast. It is important that we are moving forward every day and liberating territory. You have about 6 weeks of good weather left, and I wonder after that point, will the front be frozen in place?
Скільки можна?
We need to liberate our territory as much as possible and move forward. Even if it's less than half a mile or 100 yards, we must do it. We can't lose time. Forget about the weather and the like. In places that we can't get through in an armored vehicle, let's fly. If we can't fly, let's send drones.
Не давати спокою Путіну.
We mustn't give Putin a break. If the front is stationary, Ukrainian drones have vaulted into Russia itself, hitting the Kremlin, warplanes, and Moscow high-rises. Officially, Ukraine does not acknowledge these attacks. The drone strikes in Russia are being done on your orders.
Ні.
No, not on your orders. Well, you know, how is this
Ви
happening?
ж знаєте, що
You know we don't shoot at the territory of the Russian Federation. We decided to try the question another way. What message is being sent with these drone strikes in Russia?
ви знаєте, так, що ми використовуємо.
You do know that we use our partners' weapons on the territory of Ukraine only, and this is true. But these are not punitive operations, such as they carry out, killing civilians. But Russia needs to know that wherever it is, whichever place they use for launching missiles to strike Ukraine, Ukraine has every moral right to send a response to those places. We are responding to them, saying, your sky is not as well protected as you think. Last winter, it was Ukrainian skies that were filled with missiles in a Russian bombardment to destroy power plants. Millions shivered in the dark. With winter approaching again, Zelenskyy had this warning. They must know, if you cut off our power, deprive us of electricity, deprive us of water, deprive us of gasoline, you need to know we have the right to do it to you. Russia takes Zelenskyy seriously now because Putin's mass invasion was a fiasco. The red marks where Ukraine stopped Russia's advance last year. It also marks the stain of Russia's war crimes. Mr. President, in traveling around Ukraine for the last year and a half, we spoke to people in bombed-out schools in Chernihiv. We've seen destroyed apartment blocks in Borodyanka, a bombed hospital in Izium, civilians in a mass grave in Bucha. These are not military targets. What is Vladimir Putin trying to do? To break us. And by choosing civilian targets, Putin wanted to achieve exactly this, to break us. This person who has made his way with such bloody actions, with everything he has said, cannot be trusted. There is no trust in such a person because he has not been a human being for a long time. The Russians have suffered grievous losses without resorting to nuclear weapons. And I wonder if you believe that the threat of nuclear war is now behind us. I think he's going to continue threatening. He's waiting for the United States to become less stable. He thinks that's going to happen during the U.S. election. He'll be looking for instability in Europe and the United States of America. He will use the risk of using nuclear weapons to fuel that instability. He will keep on threatening. That U.S. election he mentioned worries him. His negotiations with President Biden have been contentious at times, but Zelenskyy tends to get what he asks for, even if, in Zelenskyy's opinion, it's generally 6 months too late. This week, Zelenskyy will press Mr. Biden for missiles with longer range. Congress is debating another $24 billion package. And if Ukraine had enough of these modern systems, we would have already restored the territorial integrity of Ukraine. We would have already done that. These systems exist. Are you safe here? We first met Zelenskyy not long after the invasion, when his office was a blacked-out bunker.
Be careful.
Now, a year and a half later, we noticed a difference. As we were setting up the interview, the former actor used his talent to mask the strain. He smiled at a compliment to his wife.
Yeah, so great.
And then instantly he seemed pulled beneath a depth no one can know. We don't know what he was thinking. It looked like empathy for the lost and for those who might be saved. Our time with Zelenskyy began in silence, a remembrance of the fallen during a ceremony to award Medals of Valor. Ukrainian officials tell us Ukraine and Russia have lost their professional armies. Now the forces are made up of volunteers, draftees, and, in Russia's case, prison inmates. Zelenskyy counts his dead in casualty reports each morning. You are the president, but it must be humbling to meet those men. I wonder what they mean to you. First of all, it's a great honor for me. I look into their eyes and it makes me proud that we have such strong people, because this is a big risk, a big risk. You can definitely lose your life for the sake of saving other lives. And when I say other lives, I don't speak in general. I mean my own life, the lives of my children. And I understand completely what risks are involved. That empathy for life has Volodymyr Zelenskyy reaching out again to the United Nations and the United States, hoping to convince the allies that the world can be safe only when Ukraine is whole.
Can you give up any part of Ukraine for peace?
Ні.
No, this is our territory.
You must have it all, including Crimea.
Сьогодні ми з вами, ви мені про це сказали, ви бачили, я нагороджував людей.
Today, you said it to me. You saw me awarding people medals. Well, today is a day like that. A week ago, I gave awards to parents of soldiers who have been killed. There were 24 families of the dead. There was a woman, she was with 3 children. There were parents, very old, they could barely walk, and they had had only one son. One of the women was pregnant. She arrived holding a baby in her arms, and she was pregnant. And that baby will never see. What should I tell them? That all of them died so that we could say, it's okay, Russia, you can take it all.
Це складна місія, розумієте, да. Нагороджувати.
It's a difficult job. You understand me, right? Giving awards to people whose faces show their whole world has collapsed. And all I can give them,
Це перемога.
is victory. On February 24th, with the Russian invasion coming at him from 3 sides, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy reached for his most powerful weapon, his phone. The moment Zelenskyy told his people he refused to flee, Ukraine refused to fall. Leaders don't become legends often, but over these nearly 7 weeks, this 44-year-old former comedian inspired his country to stand up to the overwhelming force of Russia. Last Wednesday, we were admitted to Zelenskyy's fortified war rooms to meet the man who stands between the Russian army and the free world.
Ми не працюємо в усіх кімнатах.
We met President Zelenskyy in the blacked-out hallways of his command center in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. It is a fortress, crowded with troops, machine guns, mines, explosives, and a great deal more.
Are you safe here?
Я нормально.
Yeah, I'm fine, he told us. I feel pretty calm about it. Our guards are worried because there could be an airstrike. But when we get the air raid evacuation signal, we head downstairs.
Mr. President, what has it been like working under these conditions?
We found a way how to work. We don't have another way.
You found a way how to work, you don't have any other way.
Є військові, вони охороняють.
Slipping back into Ukrainian, he said, "It has to be dark in here. You can't switch the lights on because a bomb could just fly in during an airstrike."
Вони тут сплять.
You have troops sleeping.
The president and his staff have lived here for 46 days now. The Russian invasion plan expected Kyiv to fall in 3 days, but that relied on one assumption, that Zelenskyy would run.
Ну, по-перше, коли всі говорять, треба їхати.
When everyone is telling you you need to go, you need to think.
Я перед тим, щоб
Before I do something, I analyze the situation. I've always done it calmly, without any chaos.
я можу бути
I might not be the strongest warrior,
воїном світу.
but I'm not willing to betray anyone.
What did you tell your wife and children about your decision?
Ну, вони, я їм,
I told them this is my choice, and I can't do it any other way.
і я президент своєї.
I'm the president of my country. I'm the president of our people. And even if I wasn't president, I would have stayed here.
Тут я би розумію.
My family understood, not only understood, but fully supported my decision.
Повністю.
Fully. It was the decision that saved Ukraine from immediate collapse. Good evening, everyone, he said. We are all here. Our soldiers are here. The citizens of the country are here. We are all here protecting our independence, our country, and we're going to continue.
You had made a decision to give your life for your country, if it came to that.
Я думаю, я не хочу з себе робити якогось героя.
I don't want to make myself out to be a hero, he said. I love my family. I want to live many more years. But choosing between running or being with my people, of course I'm ready to give my life for my country.
Своєї держави.
For a man with 44 million lives in his hands, we found Zelenskyy buoyant, gracious, humble, and brutally honest.
Повна правда, повна відповідальність.
The day before our visit, an angrier Zelenskyy scolded the UN Security Council. Where's the security? He asked.
ООН можна буде просто закрити.
In speaking to NATO, you called them weak. In speaking to the UN Security Council, you said, if you can't help, you shouldn't exist. Not very diplomatic of you. I wonder why you feel the need to speak so bluntly.
Граєшся в дипломатію.
When you're working at diplomacy, there are no results.
Це дуже бюрократично.
All of this is very bureaucratic. That's why the way I am talking to them is absolutely justifiable.
У мене немає.
I don't have any more lives to give. I don't have any more emotions. I'm no longer interested in their diplomacy that leads to the destruction of my country. A lot of countries have changed their mind about Ukraine and about our people, but I think we've paid too high a price for that.
Мені здається.
What must the world understand?
Ми захищаємо.
We are defending the ability of a person to live in the modern world.
Людина. Ми
We are
захищаємо
defending the right to live.
право.
I never thought this right was so costly.
Дорого коштує.
These are human values, so that Russia doesn't choose what we should do and how I'm exercising my rights. That right was given to me by God and my parents. God was hard to find on our visit to Kyiv's northern suburbs, which Russia occupied for weeks. Much of what we found will be difficult to watch. Behind St. Andrew's Church, there is a sandy trench, not quite full, of civilian residents of the town of Bucha. Ukraine stopped the Russians here, 45 minutes from the center of the capital city. The Russian retreat was so hasty, it seems there was no time to cover up the war crimes. President Zelenskyy visited Bucha 2 days before our interview.
What did you see in Bucha?
Смерть.
Death.
Просто смерть.
Just death. Last Monday was the first time Zelenskyy saw with his own eyes what Russia has done in what Vladimir Putin calls the liberation of Ukraine. The day after our interview, we found civilian neighborhoods in Bucha, blocks and blocks, shelled and blasted with no purpose but terror. Bodies and parts of bodies lay in the streets, left out like trash, Zelenskyy told us. No one knows how many victims are still in their homes, yet to be found.
There's a photograph, Mr. President, of you in Bucha with an expression on your face that you have not allowed your people to see during this war. And I wonder what we're seeing there. Is that heartbreak? Is it anger?
Це злість.
It's anger.
Це злість на те, що
It's anger.
знаємо, хто навколо нас.
Because we don't understand the Russians. You can't really understand this world, that there are people on this planet who give these orders and people who carry them out. In Bucha, neighborhood relief for the hungry and the homeless looked like World War II in color. Valery Matvienko was so angry about the senseless Russian bullet wound in his leg, we can't repeat what he told us in English. Some of the Russians were normal, some of them were totally crazy. You could walk and they would shoot, sometimes up in the air, sometimes at your legs, so you'd have to jump in front of them. Cars were run over by Russian tanks. Very brutal, not human.
Can you tell me?
We met Tatiana Dimitrievna, who compressed the occupation into a single word.
Жах.
Horror.
Жах.
Horror, she said. Gunfire was nonstop day and night. Thanks to God, it all passed and we survived. It's simply a miracle. I had 2 grandchildren with me in the basement. I never thought I would live to see this horror.
Mr. Zelensky told us that he couldn't believe that human beings could do something like this.
We never believed it either. We are simply in shock, all of us.
What evidence is there of war crimes across Ukraine?
The Ukrainian security service has intercepted communications, he told us. There are Russian soldiers talking with their parents about what they stole and who they abducted. There are recordings of Russian prisoners of war who admitted to killing people. There are pilots in prison who had maps with civilian targets to bomb. There are also investigations being done based on the remains of the dead.
Should Vladimir Putin be prosecuted for war crimes?
Look, I think everyone who made a decision, who issued an order, who fulfilled an order, everyone who is relevant to this, I believe they are all guilty.
Do you hold Putin responsible?
I do believe he's one of them. That's what I believe. The slaughter of civilians could have been stopped, Zelensky told us. He's deeply grateful for the weapons NATO and the U.S. are sending around the clock, but he's bitterly disappointed the Allies refused to impose a no-fly zone over Ukraine. President Biden has called that an invitation to World War III, but in Zelensky's view, it's the kind of inaction the world has suffered before.
Mr. President, in a speech to NATO, you said, quote, "All the people who die will die because of you, because of your weakness." Are you saying that the West bears some responsibility for these atrocities?
He told us, I remember, all of us remember, books about the Second World War and about the devil in uniform, Adolf Hitler. Are those countries who did not participate in the war responsible? The countries who let German forces march throughout Europe. Does the world carry responsibility for the genocide? Yes. Yes, it does. When you have the ability to close the sky. Yes, it's scary that a world war could start. It's scary, I understand that. And I cannot put pressure on these people because everyone is afraid of war. But whether the world is responsible for this, I believe so. Yes, I believe so. Stand in front of the mirror every day and ask yourself, were you able to do something or were you unable to do something? You will find the answer in the mirror to this question and to another question. Who are you? That's what I believe. Perhaps Zelensky reaches for World War II because of his homeland's history of catastrophe, and because he's Ukraine's first Jewish president. Zelensky is 44 years old, holds a law degree. He's married with a son and a daughter. His family is safe somewhere in Ukraine. In this war, Zelensky is the leading man in a tragedy. But he's worked his entire career to make people laugh. He was Ukraine's favorite comedian, whose sitcom was popular in Russia, too. In his show called Servant of the People, He played a high school history teacher whose anger at corruption in Ukraine explodes into a profane rant. A student posts the tirade, and the teacher is elected president. In 2019, Zelenskyy turned parody into power. He ran on an anti-corruption platform and won 73% of the vote. He was 41 years old. He brought longtime friend and business partner Andrei Yermak in as chief of staff.
He's smart, he's strong, he's brave, and he's a person who is self-made. Zelenskyy is not just the leader of our heroic nation. I think he is a leader of the free world.
Why do you say President Zelenskyy is the leader of the free world now?
Because Ukraine defends not just Ukraine. We defend all democracy.
Zelenskyy has been defending Ukraine since his inauguration day. That green T-shirt, which caught the eye of the world, was no surprise to Ukrainians. He keeps fatigues in his office because he often visited the battlefront near the Russian border, where Ukraine has been in a shooting war with Russia since 2014. That was when Putin invaded part of Ukraine called the Donbass and seized Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula. In 2014, before Zelenskyy was elected, a Russian anti-aircraft battery in Ukraine shot down an airliner, killing 298 civilians. In our interview, Zelenskyy told us he's been trying to warn the world that Putin will not stop at Ukraine.
Mr. President, it appears that the free world has calculated that the suffering of your people is not worth even the risk of a nuclear exchange.
I think so. That's how it is. Some are using that politically as an excuse by saying we can't defend Ukraine because there could be a nuclear war. I think that today, no one in this world can predict what Russia will do. If they invade further into our territory, they will definitely move closer and closer to Europe. They will only become stronger and less predictable.
President Biden says he is outraged by Bucha. NATO leaders say they are outraged by Bucha. So what should they do now?
Weapons, number one. They need to be very serious about it. They definitely understand what I'm talking about right now. They have to supply weapons to Ukraine as if they were defending themselves and their own people. They need to understand this. If they don't speed up, it will be very hard for us to hold on against this pressure. The second factor is sanctions, because we've found some things in sanctions that are easy for financial experts to circumvent. Russia has been circumventing them, and this is absolutely true. The Western world knows it. This shouldn't be allowed. This is not a movie. This is real life. Stop fearing the Russian Federation. We've shown we are not afraid. When we come back, in the wake of the Bucha atrocities, President Zelenskyy tells the United States what he must have to survive. Friday, a Russian missile strike hit a crowd of refugees striving to escape eastern Ukraine by train. At least 50 were killed, 5 children. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy calls it a war crime. Tonight, Zelenskyy is fighting a powerful Russian assault on Ukraine's east and south. Russia has not seized its strategic objectives, so instead, it's shelling defiant cities to ruin. The one exception, at least now, is Kyiv. In a feat of arms no one expected, Ukraine's outgunned army defeated the massive Russian force that had been ordered to take the capital city. Kyiv survives for the moment, a capital of mummified monuments and 19th century grace. Before, It was a bumper-to-bumper city with 3 million residents. But now the streets are congested only by shadows. Air raids are still a danger, but after nearly 7 weeks, the siren doesn't quicken the step like it used to.
Have you won the Battle of Kyiv?
Київ. Я думаю, що так,
I think
але
yes,
це
but
не
this isn't the
остаточна
final victory.
перемога.
I
Я
will
не
only be
впевнений,
able to
що вона
tell
остання.
after we win this war.
Коли ми звільнимо наші
When we
території,
liberate our country,
я зможу сказати.
then
Тому
I'll be
що
able to tell.
Буча –
Because
це
Bucha
частина
is
великого
part of
Києва,
Greater
як і
Kyiv,
Буча, Ірпінь,
Bucha,
що там
Irpin,
звільнимо наші
Hostomel.
території. Я
If the people of those towns were wiped out, then did we win this battle? I'm not sure. We've withstood, and we did not give up what is ours, but whether we won, I can't say.
Перемогли, я не готовий поки що сказати.
No one expected Ukraine to fight Russia to a standstill. And I wonder, how did you manage?
Ми об'єднались як
We
нація,
united as a nation,
розуміючи,
even though our people understood that they would be outnumbered tenfold and there would be no way out, just no way out. We fought for our existence and for survival.
за існування і за виживання.
That's the combined heroism of everyone, of the people, of the authorities, of the armed forces. We became a single fist. We saw the Ukrainian punch in the town of Bucha, where the remains of a Russian armored column rusted dead in the street. Neighbors holed up for weeks emerged to remember what victory looks like. No one seemed in a hurry to deal with the bits of Russian soldiers in the wreckage. The full story of how the outmanned Ukrainian army stopped the invasion of Kyiv will fill history books. But we already know part of it.
Because the Russians believed that Kyiv would fall in a matter of days, they literally did not bring enough food or fuel for their armored columns. On the other side, the Ukrainians have been trained for years by the California National Guard and other U.S. units. When the invasion happened, the United States, Britain, and other countries flooded Ukraine with lightweight, shoulder-fired anti-tank missiles. How much difference have American arms made in this war?
Вони допомагають.
They're helping. Frankly speaking, I would have wanted more. I don't know if I have the right to say that, but the fact that the United States has helped a lot is true. Zelensky's man in charge of arming Ukraine is Chief of Staff Andrei Yermak. When we met, he'd just finished a 2-hour call with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Mark Milley. Yermak asked for heavier weapons faster. First, there was artillery.
The second, we need the tanks, we need the military jets, and we need everything which gives to us opportunity to close our sky.
When you asked the Biden administration for artillery, tanks, jet airplanes, the administration says what?
We have very deep and very detailed conversation. This is American president who is done for Ukraine more than all other presidents. But then you have the war, and we are openly said, we need more. It's not enough. We need it as soon as possible. If we receive this support in time, we will win.
A White House official tells us Yermak got a yes to his requests, but filling orders takes time. The Ukrainians need Russian-made weapons that they already know how to use. The U.S. is cajoling allies to ship their Russian gear now on the promise that the U.S. will replace it later. America has thrown in nearly $2 billion in military aid. From the Ukrainian point of view, of course, nothing is fast enough. Russian bombardment is escalating in the east and south. Cities are being shelled to ruin, including Mariupol, with 450,000 residents.
What are you expecting now in the East and in the South?
We think this will be a new wave of this war. We don't know how much Russian weaponry there will be, but we understand there'll be many times more than there is now. All depends on how fast we will be helped by the United States. To be honest, whether we will be able to survive depends on this. I have 100% confidence in our people and in our armed forces, but unfortunately, I don't have the confidence that we will be receiving everything we need.
And so what are you asking of President Biden?
To tell you the truth, long ago I asked President Biden for very specific items. He has the list.
President
Biden can enter history as the person who stood shoulder to shoulder with the Ukrainian people, who won and chose the right to have their own country. This also depends on him.
You are frustrated with President Biden?
No, I'm not disappointed. I don't know how another president in his place would help us. I don't know. It's difficult. We have a good relationship. I think so, at least. Ukraine depends on the support of the United States, and I, as the leader of a country at war, I can only be grateful. As for the other president at war, we asked Zelenskyy if he would meet now, face-to-face, with Vladimir Putin. He told us it was worth the chance. They wouldn't resolve everything, Zelenskyy said, but they might stop the killing.
Are you willing to give up any part of Ukraine for peace?
Overall, we're not ready to give away our country. I think we've already given up a lot of lives. So we need to stand firm for as long as we can. But this is life. Different things happen.
It's negotiable?
Well, this issue would definitely be raised in the course of negotiations. We understand the Russian side. We understand one of their provisions that is always talked about is to recognize Crimea as Russian territory. I will definitely not recognize that. And they would really like to take the southern parts of our country. I clearly understand that questions like this will be raised in negotiations, if there ever are any. But we were not ready to give up our territory from the beginning. Had we been willing to give up our territory, there would have been no war.
Mr. President, in almost every speech to your country, you say that Ukraine is going to win. What does winning look like to you?
Victory. First of all, our people would definitely feel victory. They will come back. The return of refugees is blood for the body of Ukraine. Without them, there's nothing. The bombardments would end. We would recover our territory. There would be no Russian soldiers in our country. Yes, I understand they will not withdraw from Crimea and will be arguing and negotiating for one territory or another in the south of our country, the Donbass. I know exactly what has to happen, after which we can say this is victory, but if you don't mind, I'm not going to talk about it just yet.
Mr. President, we wish you all the luck in the world.
I need half of it. I think even half will be enough.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy has borrowed more luck than anyone expected. With the reprieve of Kyiv, Ukraine has turned mere admiration into credibility. Its people are suffering grievous loss every hour, but they have proven there was a moment in Kyiv when they silenced the guns of Russia. In a major escalation of the war in Europe, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced Friday he is annexing about 20% of Ukraine. The region, in the east and in the south, is only partly controlled by Russia because of a Ukrainian counteroffensive. In a belligerent speech, Putin referred to nuclear weapons and accused the West of Satanism. He vowed that the territory will be Russian forever. President Biden responded that the U.S. will never recognize the annexation and will support Ukraine's military as long as it takes. 7 months of war have been catastrophic for Ukrainian families, many of whom turn for hope to Olena Zelenska. The First Lady of Ukraine was trained as an architect, made a living as a comedy writer, but awoke last February to a tragedy. Overnight, she became an ambassador, a mourner, and the healer of a nation fighting for its life. We met in the capital, Kyiv, at a location we agreed not to disclose. The day of our interview, Ukraine was forcing a Russian retreat.
I'm ready, yes.
And exposing the horrors of the invasion. What have the families of Ukraine lost?
Половина сімей розділена.
Half our families are separated, she told us, because someone is at the front, someone went abroad to save their children, someone is under Russian occupation. People are afraid to leave their homes because of shelling. They're afraid to even try to evacuate. We have thousands of dead. Hundreds of children are dead. We were just in Chernihiv. We saw the soccer stadium had been bombed, the library, a hospital, public school number 18, public school number 21. What are the Russians trying to do? They try to frighten people to make them run, to have towns and villages empty so they can occupy these territories. Is it warfare or is it terrorism? Definitely terrorism. The war is being waged using modern means, but from the moral and ethical point of view, it's the Middle Ages. Olena Zelenska is 44 years old, married 19 years to her husband, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Their names differ because in Slavic languages, surnames are often modified by gender.
Good.
When we spoke to her husband in early April,
We found a way how to work. We don't have another way.
he told us his wife and 2 children were in hiding, but weeks later, he deployed his wife like a weapon. In May, she showed First Lady Jill Biden the war's homeless in western Ukraine. In July, she came to Washington and became the first First Lady to address the U.S. Congress. I'm asking for weapons, she said then. Weapons that would not be used to wage war on somebody else's land, but to protect one's home and the right to wake up alive in that home. When we met, we noticed what seemed like a weariness she was determined to ignore. It was the price of the path she'd chosen, to meet her people, know their pain, and bear the weight of empathy. We met a man in Bucha yesterday. He and his family were fleeing the Russian invasion. The Russians opened fire on his car. His leg was destroyed. The car caught fire, and he watched his wife and children burn to death. I find it hard to express the enormity of what's happening. And I wonder how you express the suffering of your people. I feel like a part of these people. I feel as if this is my pain. The stories are terrifying, and we try to somehow help the survivors. You just told me this man in Bucha had lost his leg. Well, a girl, Sasha, lost her arm. Now she's in the United States. I started a program with the Ukraine House in Washington, and with many American philanthropists and American doctors and hospitals, we found an opportunity to give the girl an artificial prosthesis. But every time she looks at her hands, she will see what she has lost. Sasha will always see what she lost in this war.
втратила в цій війні.
The world has watched as Ukraine has lost entire cities. Nearly 500 hospitals and clinics have been hit. Schools are devastated. Mrs. Zelenska told us about 150 schools simply do not exist. About 900 schools have been damaged. We saw what she means in Chernihiv, about 3 hours north of Kyiv. Public School 21 was used as a shelter when a Russian bomb struck. We asked some of those who were there to join us.
Why would the Russians bomb a school?
Inna Lebchenko, the school principal, told us, I thought it was a safe place for all of us. We even wrote the word children on the windows. This is Principal Lebchenko, who lost vision in one eye. Natalia Horbach was sheltering with her 2 boys. My face and my ear were injured. My head and my right arm were cut with some fragments. A man came over and helped me up and took me to a car that drove us to the hospital. When he helped me stand up, I asked him about the... She couldn't quite say the word, children. Children were wounded, but 7 adults were killed. Another bomb hit Valentina Vasilchenko's home. My grandson's heart was still beating. They were giving him medical assistance, but a lot of time was lost, and he died in the ambulance near the house. My granddaughter, her fiancé, my daughter's husband, and my mother were found dead in the rubble.
Public School 21 in Chernihiv had 850 students. How are you educating the children of Ukraine today?
Around 3,500 schools will operate online only because schools cannot receive students and because their parents are afraid to send their children to school. Ukraine's children went to school this year, and the first thing they learned is where the bomb shelter is, how to get there, and what to do in case a missile strikes. We will fight. We will not give our children up. I don't know how we can forgive this. I don't think we will. After the Russians severed communications with the occupied territories, Ukrainians dropped messages in the Dnipro River with the current and against the chance they would reach those behind the new Iron Curtain. We really hope that our love letters were received by someone there and that they hear us. I truly hope our people will endure. We will never give up our people. And by the way, there's this idea of giving up territory in some kind of negotiation. Our people are there. We will never betray them.
That is not negotiable in the view of your government.
I really don't want to express political opinions. That's not my role. But imagine a situation where you've been attacked by bandits. They're threatening you, killing your children, and someone suggests maybe it would be better to negotiate. That is impossible now. This is just my opinion as a citizen of Ukraine. Olena Zelenska dated her future husband in college. She became a writer on Zelensky's comedy shows. In a sitcom called Servant of the People, he played a teacher who was elected president of Ukraine. He turned parody into power in 2019 when he actually ran and won 73% of the vote. The Zelenskys have an 18-year-old daughter and 9-year-old son.
Are you stronger than you thought you were?
Всі стали сильніші. Тут це немає
Everyone
якоїсь
has become stronger. I'm not unique.
Ти виживаєш.
You survive, and going through trials, you automatically become stronger.
Мені здається, так. Ми
So,
стаємо
yes, we're getting stronger, but will that help us?
це нам допоможе.
I hope so.
Так.
Madam First Lady, may I show you some photographs from the United States?
With pleasure.
This is a picture I took on Fifth Avenue in New York.
Wonderful.
This is San Francisco. This is a home in the state of Florida.
It's wonderful.
This is a bumper sticker where I buy my groceries. I took this picture on the east side of Manhattan. This is a baseball game in Denver, Colorado.
Balloons.
And this is from Florida as well.
Це дуже зворушливо.
What do you say to the American people?
Я можу щиро сказати, що я відчуваю.
I can say I really feel the support. When I was in Washington, I was handed a short letter written by a guy named Hector. He's a teenager, 14 years old. He wrote me a short letter with words of support. By the way, if possible, and Hector sees this program, I would like to tell him,
Dear Hector, I remember it. I took your letter with me to Ukraine, and it was charming, and it was extremely touching.
so it seems to me that normal people understand what evil is, and that the attacker is evil,
І що нападник це
that it is normal to defend your country, your children, your homes. I'm sure that Americans themselves are like that.
Я впевнена, що американці самі такі.
What does the future hold?
Зараз ми про це мріємо.
We are dreaming about this. Over these months, we've seen the human being as the center of everything. This is what makes us different from the aggressor. They don't count their dead. We count every person who died, and we want everyone still alive to feel confident and to have opportunities to grow.
Впевнено, щоб він отримав.
That's what we dream about.
розвитку. Саме про
That's
це
how
ми
we want to see
мріємо,
our country
щоб такою
in the
була
future.
держава в майбутньому.